I think the last time I had the honour of speaking after the Minister was about 2 years ago at an IIBN event. And the Minister was talking about the action plan for jobs and the great plans they had to create jobs in Ireland, and I was talking up the economy and talking about the improvements we were seeing. And I think we were met with a somewhat cautious response from the audience. So it's great to be stood up here today, 2 years later, having been proved fairly correct in the prognosis that things were getting better, and now with all the data about falling unemployment, rising employment, accelerating job creation, demonstrating that the recovery is not just underway but well and truly embedded in the economy now. And we're seeing that happen in all sectors. The fastest growing area of our business at the moment is construction recruitment. And when you've got a national recruiter hiring people to hire people into the construction sector, we can well and truly say that times are definitely a lot better. The outlook that we see is probably employment prospects better than they have been at any time for over 7 years. So things have definitely improved, but with that improvement comes challenges. And some of the issues that Minister was referring to there about the skills shortages have perhaps not been top of the agenda. It's been about creating employment. Well, I think at the top of the agenda now, we need to have this issue of the skills gap and finding employees for those jobs that we've got. Anne has referred there to the Global Skills Index, and you can see from the slide there, the sort of subtitle of the report that we produced at the end of last year is the Great Talent Mismatch, because that's the essential finding of this report. You may not be able to see the detail on the slide. I'll just explain what the Global Skills Index is. As Anne referenced, it's a study of 30 labour markets globally. It's conducted on behalf of Hayes by Oxford Economics, and it examines 7 critical factors that determine an employer's ability to hire skilled talent. You may not or may not be able to see, through looking at the slide there, that in the table at the bottom, in the centre, it says talent mismatch. And Ireland scores a 10. Unfortunately, a 10 is not a good score. It's the worst comparative score that you can have. So this is an acute issue for Ireland. If you look in the report, there are 4 countries that score a 10. We are in company with Spain and Portugal, and quite interestingly, the United States. There are many factors that determine this talent mismatch. Interestingly, economic factors are not one. But if you look at the countries that score 10 and what they have in common, they all have long-term unemployment issues, and they all have a critical lack of talent to fill the skilled jobs that they have. So this is a key issue, and I believe a priority issue in the coming years. The question then becomes, what can we do? And I think we need to divide our thinking into 2 areas here. We need to look at some short-term solutions to fill the gap, and then we need to look at some longer-term strategies to make sure that over time we improve the situation and narrow that skills gap. And we can look around the world at places that have addressed this more successfully than we have here in Ireland at the moment. So, looking at short-term fixes. It's quite straightforward. If we haven't got the talent in Ireland here and now to fill the jobs that we have, then we need to go outside to bring that talent in. And if we're going to do that successfully, we need to do 2 things really, really well. The first thing we need to do is we need to sell Ireland as a destination of choice for talent around the world. The second thing we need to do is to make it very easy for that talent to get here. And I'm not sure that we're doing all that we could on both those items to make it happen. If we look at selling Ireland around the world, we have done a first-class job in attracting employment to Ireland. The work of the IDA and EI and various other organisations in bringing FDI into Ireland has been a phenomenal success and arguably sustained us over the last few years. So we have a model that has worked. I think what might be interesting is to look how we could adapt that model, targeting not employment but employees. What can we do to make Ireland a destination of choice for talent around the world? We have trade missions that bring about business interactions in countries. Could we have skills missions to bring and promote Ireland as this destination of choice for talent? So we need to have a real focus on how we reach out into the world and put ourselves on the map. And when you travel, as we do, to places like Europe and the Nordics, when you go further afield and talk to our colleagues in Australia, and you start to tell them the Irish story about things like the digital hub, things like Barrow Street and Silicon Docks, at an employee level, people are not aware. And when you make them aware, their kind of jaw drops at what we've got to offer here. So we've got a great story to tell, but we need to do a better job of telling that story. And then we need to make it easy for people to get here. And whilst we would acknowledge that there have been some improvements in the permit system, they don't go far enough. It is still, I think there is a fundamental flaw in the way we look at our permit system. If you want to get a work permit in Ireland, you have to go through a process to obtain that permit, but that permit will then apply to your employment, not to you as an individual. It's correct that you can change employment after a year, but then you need to apply for a permit again. And if we look at best practice globally, the Australia and New Zealand model is one that I would highlight that we could learn from. Because there they operate a slightly different system where they have a skilled occupation list. And if you meet the criteria on that list, you can gain entry into the country. You're not dependent upon an offer of employment. And importantly, that visa and permit will apply to you as an individual, not your employment. It also grants you permanent residency and residency for your family. So when we're looking at a global war for talent and what we've got to do, we need to be doing at least as well as the Australians and New Zealanders are doing at making our jobs accessible to people around the world. So there are places we can go to learn from about what we need to do better to bring talent into Ireland.